welcome everyone to another episode of Control Alt Access. It is a video game accessibility video and audio podcast that takes place a couple of times a month. I'm one of your hosts, Laura. Hi, if you're watching the video version, you'll be able to see I have some fancy new glasses now you'll be able to see on screen.
Ooh, looking good though.
And I'm here this week, as ever, with my lovely co-host, Arevya. How are you doing?
Hi, everyone. Well, if you're looking at the screen right now, you see I look really, really tired, but that was because I needed to travel to a wedding this weekend. It was worth it. Absolutely worth it.
Big sleepy day for both of us. Both of us are in the middle of travel things, and we got to wedge this in where we can, but we're sleepy. That's fine, because we're EP or sleepy, but there's accessibility, so that's going to energize us enough
Accessibility
to do a show.
needs to go forward. We need to get this out.
Exactly. We can't be letting the accessibility go unacknowledged. So who should start this week talking about stuff we've played and done in the last couple of weeks? Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I want to start off because I had a huge event last week. My favorite game from my childhood came out. Tomba Special Edition, yes. And it was amazing. I did an 11-hour stream. Was absolutely floored by like people commenting and being happy about this. I got some people from Limited Run Games or one person who was the lead producer on what do you call it, lead developer on the game. I think that's it. Well, not my brain is a bit fried, but I think that was it. To come by, and we had an interview together. So I interviewed him, talked to him about the game, like everything. And we talked a lot about accessibility and the importance of I don't think maybe people know this, but a lot of games is actually, especially old games, is actually on the brink of just disappearing. And if they disappear, we don't have any like recollection of them. They will literally just disappear and never ever we can remake them.
Preservation in video games is terrible. There is so little archiving of like who has the rights to things, where the original source code for things is, and when those things get muddled, sometimes it's just the original version of that game is the only one that exists, and when all those copies vanish, it's just gonna be gone. It
might like be in like one disc in a wardrobe somewhere in the world, but nobody knows, and it might never come back. And so like the preservation of old games are important. Remakes, I know some people really hate them, but they are extremely important. And they're also really important for people like me who, when they get remade to new consoles, it makes it accessible for me. So Tomba isn't technically an accessible game at all. It's the typical 90s. I had people in my chat go like, girl, I love you, but I can't stay the sound. This is like stimuli overload deluxe. Like all your senses is violently affected at the same time. This is 90s at its 90s from Japan. So it's not an accessible game in that way. Like if you were to put like what is accessible, but it is accessible for me due to the fact that they have added the fact that now I can use the access controller. And they had rewind possibilities, which I didn't have in the original. I love that. That was so cool. And also the fact that you can save anywhere. So if you died, before it was like in the start of every level, you could save sort of at a sign that tell you where in the level you were. But here they now have it that you can save whenever. And if you die, normally you go back to that sign last time you saved. But now you only got back to where you latest saved. So a bunch of quality of life improvements. And I was so happy. The event was amazing. And it was just perfect.
I played Tomba for the first time this week because I knew how excited you were about it. And I was like, there's no chance that I'm going to come to this recording not having played Tomba to be able to talk about it.
Laura, you're amazing.
So it's a weird experience to play that game having never played it like back in the day. It definitely does have a few accessibility barriers. One thing that cropped up for me was, rather than tutorial the game like while you're playing, at least for this remake, it just, here's a big screen with a bunch of text of all the controls all at once at first in big long paragraphs that you have to read and remember and internalize all at once. Not great for me. But I do appreciate being able to save anywhere and being able to rewind. Both of those are things that make classic games with hard difficulty curves much more manageable for me, because I only have to do a thing successfully once to be able to progress. Yeah. I'm not going to lose progress if I can't consistently do the same movements with my hands more than once.
Yeah. Originally in the game, there actually were these signs you could check, and you could still check them in the game. They were still there. But the thing is just that, as we've seen, people just didn't understand that, and that was a problem in the original world as well. Yeah. So even though it's an improvement, yes, a wall of text, nope.
There are some things I really love about this. So for anyone who's never played Tomba, you play this sort of caveman person with pink hair, and your like primary mechanic you have at the start of the game is just sort of flinging yourself through the air with like your arms and legs wobbling behind you, and throwing yourself at enemies and landing on top of them and just catching them in your mouth to like throw them wildly in directions. Yeah. And there is something very satisfying about the act of just fling yourself around the level. That movement is weirdly satisfying.
Yeah.
And for a PS1 game of that era, one of the things that really stood out to me was the way that it uses 3D space in a 2D perspective game.
Yeah, it's a 2D half game, so 2.5 game it's called itself.
Yeah, it does some interesting things, like in that first like few minutes of playing, realizing, oh, I'm stood in front of a wall. I can push my analog stick toward the wall and press the jump button, and I like climb up that 3D physical object, and I'm now on the roof, and I'm slightly further in the background of the level. And like, maybe the level will sort of turn and rotate as I climb around something. Like, visually, it was doing really interesting stuff that I didn't see a lot of in that era of 3D games. It's got a fun sense of humor. I see why you like it.
Yeah, like, as somebody who loves like Japan and all of that geekiness of around Japan and anime and stuff today, I think like this was a game who just like showcased Japan in the 90s. It's just silly, it's goofy, it's sometimes, a lot of times, like talks to you in the, it goes around like the fourth wall and talks to you, the player, directly. It's just fun, it's games, it's giggles. Is it accessible? No. I talked a bit to the developers about that, and this, even with this game that is so beloved by so many thousand people, because it sort of has a cult following, this game, the open source, the actual source code is lost, at least for now. We don't know where it is. So this game is a remake in the form of they have put it into something they call a carbon engine, which is a way of like the PS5 to understand what is happening on a PS1 game, or the Switch to understand what's happening on a PS1 game. So the codes will stay the same. So there is a limited for what we can do with accessibility. But for me, that also means that, okay, these are lost, and we can't do anything about that unless we need to sit down and do everything, and nobody will do that. But it shows us we need some archive. We need a library that takes care of every single game, take care of every single code, so that in the future we have it, because then we easily can add accessibility. Then we can add things like voiceovers and stuff like that that could be so much easier, that today is, with the technology we have right now, it's not possible.
Yeah, there's so many reasons that video game preservation needs to be better. One that I think about a lot is if you don't make old video games accessible easily, it's really hard for like current game design students to learn from things in our industry's past. Yeah. One example I think about is PT, the playable trailer, playable teaser that was going to be Silent Hills.
Yeah.
That is a game that you can't just go and get a copy of that game. It is... Unless you find someone who has a copy installed on PS4, you just can't get it.
Yeah.
But it was such an influential piece of, like, horror tension media that years from now, game design students wanting to make games in that genre just won't be able to get their hands on to play around with and learn from. Like, proper preservation of video games is really important, and I really hope, as an industry, we get that stuff under control. Because, as you say, proper preservation of source code means that things like going back in and adding accessibility down the line are going to be so much more viable.
Yeah, absolutely. Going a bit further though, going a bit forward, I played some other games. I played A Little to the Left, if you guys haven't played that. It's like a game where you get something and you need to sort it. You get like a screen, say like you have 5 pencils and you need to sort them in some way. So it's like a cleaning game, sorting game, organization game, and there is a cat there that will like mess up. This game is
there is.
not, it's not that accessible, but it is a really, can be for some people, like piece of like calmness, just organizing thing. And it was for me that I came to one level and I nearly rage quit because I got like a huge drawer and everything was messed up, and it was so much chaos that I actually just felt physically ill.
I wish I could love this game more than I do, because like on paper, a game about organizing and sorting things in sensible ways, exactly my kind of vibe. For me, the big barrier was the cat, because the levels where the cat shows up, you will be organizing things and the cat will just come in and smack them and like mess them about, and I'm not fast enough at doing the activity to get through those levels. I'm trying to sort and the cat messes it up again, and it's a hard barrier for me. I frequently will get to one of those levels and be stuck on it for like 45 minutes and be like, I can't get further. And it's a shame, because if I could just turn those off,
if you could just turn the cat off,
I would love this game.
Absolutely.
I struggled with it back in the day. There was a demo for it, and the problem with the demo that is now fixed was that the demo only had one solution per puzzle. And if the way I wanted to organize something wasn't the way the devs wanted it organized, it wouldn't be a successful solution. And the finished game is much better about that. But
a lot.
The demo really put me off, because I was like, no, I wanted to sort these by size. What do you mean I have to sort them by number? That's not size order.
I also did try a game called Paper Trails, which is an origami game, which I am so impressed by. It's an origami game where like every level is a piece of paper, and then you can pull each corner, or you can like
you can fold the level on top of itself.
And you can also see what's on the other side, which was really, really cool, because they also had a really good hint system. If you were stuck, reset the level, go in the hint system, and it just shows you on a blank piece of paper which you're going to fold, so it's not confusing. I love that because it was really accessible. It had like an accessibility menu, but they did the cardinal sin, and that was that the game started before you were able to see the settings. I have been in contact with the developers, so I will reach out to them, and I'm really, really hoping for a meeting where I'm going to like talk about these things and like why it's, if you just do these small changes, your game will be massively more accessible. So I'm crossing fingers that I will get that meeting and we can like sort that out, because I don't think that will be the hardest thing to sort of have the pop-up thing you have in like God of War, where it says here is the accessibility, either go into the settings or continue.
I played a demo for this at EGX like maybe 3 years ago and was so intrigued by the concept, but even back at the time I was like, there are some accessibility things that could do with some help on this, and I'm glad to hear they've implemented some stuff. I didn't know it was out until I saw it on your list. I'm definitely going to check it out this week, but it is a fascinating idea for a game. It reminds me a lot of, we recently talked about a Ranger, that one about, like, you move and the level sort of scrolls with you in whatever direction you've moved. It feels like it's in that genre of game of manipulate the space you're moving around in interesting ways, and Paper Trail is great at, like, making that feel tactile. Like, there is a really nice touch element to it. Like, wherever your character is currently standing, you can't fold that bit of the level because you're already on it, so you have to, like, I know what I need to fold, how do I move myself out of the way so I can do the fold and get there? But, yeah, interesting game. Shame to hear about that one cardinal sin being done.
Yeah, but I think that is something that they can fix, and crossing the finger. If I ever see that they will add that, I will let people know, because, as I said, this was such a weird in the form of, like, I would never thought this game would be what it was. So I recommend sitting down and trying it. Like, absolutely just try it for yourself, because this was, like, mentally it was something else. It was just sitting there folding paper in sort of like such a calming way, and with a good story. And also because you had a hint system, it never got that frustrated, because if you came to a place you were just like, I have no idea what I'm going to do, the hint system is there for you. It's actually really good that way.
Nice.
So, and the other thing, like I have started doing something really cool on stream, which is nothing to do with gaming, but I have dared to adventure out to do game and software development on stream, and which I was scared of doing because streaming is awesome and everything, but it is dominated by male streamers, and sometimes that can mean that comes with gatekeeping for some categories, and especially things like software and game development sadly have a lot of known gatekeeping. But after some really, really good convincing on Twitter, I actually jumped in, and I had the best stream, like the most perfect stream, I think, for ages. It was just me doing the Pomodoro method, which is the timer where you work for so many minutes and then you have break for so minutes. And I let my audience also join to like let their task be on screen so that they could check it off when they were done. And I made an accessibility document, which I'm going to continue doing every Wednesday forward now, so people can learn about accessibility and ask me live questions, and I will tell them. Yeah, so and then also is a bit of piece of accessibility for myself, with my memory not being the strongest it's ever been. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
I'm sadly often coming in cases where I see that I know this, but I need to like really, really sit down and figuring where can I get that hook that will make my brain remember it again. So I need to write down everything I know about accessibility in one document, so I can go into there and just find it. And this document also will be free for everybody to download. It's not that yet, but because it will be a living document, I need to get a bit more meat on the bone before I publish it. But it will be free for everybody to download. It will be a document about accessibility, but also about disability history and disability, like the culture around disability. So accessibility will be simple, easy, and then the disability thing will be a bit more complicated, so people can come and read more about it and learn a bit more about why accessibility is so important and why we say the things we do. So you can be a bit more knowledgeable about that.
That's really
Laura,
lovely.
What about you? What are you doing the last couple of 2 weeks?
So I've been trying to play a little handful of things just because I'm in between travel, so it's like, I gotta wedge some stuff in to have stuff to talk about. So I played a really charming game this week. It's maybe 2.5 hours long. It's called Thank Goodness You're Here. I don't know if you're aware of this game. It is a side-on perspective, cartoonish game where you play this tiny little yellow man running around a British town called Barnsworth. Slapping people on the bottom and helping them with their problems. They're very British problems. The idea is that you work for a company, and it's unclear what your company sells, but whatever it is, Barnsworth needs it. So you've been sent to Barnsworth to go talk to the mayor and sell him whatever it is you sell. And the mayor's busy, he's in meetings. So you end up just getting caught into this almost like a point-and-click adventure style of this person has a problem, and to solve their problem you need to solve this person's problem, and to solve that problem you need to solve this person's problem. And all of it is wrapped up in very, very British humour, and specifically like Northern England, specifically like Yorkshire area, slightly anachronistic British humour that is like very rooted in 80s British comedy. Stuff like the Two Ronnies, stuff like your Fawlty Towers, Blackadder era of British humour, where it's a little bit innuendo filled, it's a little bit built around puns. There's a lot of emphasis on repetition of a joke, or you know the punchline that's coming and we're going to really drag it out for a long time and make you wait for the thing you know is coming a stupidly long period of time to make the punchline land. It's not going to be for everyone.
No.
But as a British person, I had a great time with it. Silly as it is.
But it sounds amazing. So when I grew up, it was more common to get TV shows in Norway because we dubbed, of course, a lot of things, but a lot of like the evening TV shows that we didn't produce here in Norway came from England, from BBC. So this kind of humor, I've grown up with it, and I can't wait to try this game. It sounds really, really fun. It sounds right up my alley. Like, it's silly, easy humor that you can just laugh off. Have a good time.
It is a game that I will say is very unapologetic about its Britishness. A lot of the jokes are things where it's like, if you don't understand the joke, we're not going to explain it to you. And I've seen some people who haven't grown up around British humour who have been a bit baffled by it. Some of the stuff, like, you know, if you don't know that 10 bob means £10, and the fact that everything advertised in the game costs 10 bob no matter what it is, like that makes no sense. That's going to fly over your head. If you don't know what a crest sarnie is, that you might get a bit confused. But I think, like, the slapstick and the pacing of the humor, I think there is a lot to be enjoyed in. One thing I love about this game is it opens on one dialogue choice. That the way I'm going to explain it is, here is some subtitles written in Northern English dialect. Do you understand what we're asking you? Yes, written in Northern English dialect, or no, I don't understand what you're talking about. What is this? And that will determine whether the subtitles are written with the pronunciation of like Yorkshire English, or whether they're written in, hey, I know that it's hard to understand what they're saying in this accent. We're just going to write it in plain English for you if you need that level of
that's
assistance.
Smart.
Which I like the fact they use that as a way to ask the question. So it's like, if you don't understand what they're asking you, this is not a setting for you.
Yes.
But yeah, there's not a lot there in terms of, like, direct accessibility settings, but what I do think is nice is that for a game that is structured like a point-and-click adventure, your quests are in self-contained areas, so there's very rarely too many places to go looking for the solution to what you're doing. And the game sort of forces you to move through locations in one big loop. You can't really double back on yourself.
Okay.
So generally speaking, if you have a problem and you don't know where the solution is, keep moving forward through the loop and you'll probably get to where you're going.
Yeah.
The answer probably won't be double back on yourself. It will be, no, keep moving through the loop and new things will happen as you move through that loop, and that will probably help you get where you're going.
Yeah.
And that, I think, makes the puzzle-solving aspect from a cognitive accessibility standpoint really manageable, in that you always know the direction that progress is in. It's always continue through that loop until you find something has changed. But yeah, it's like 2.5 hours long. I think it's very charming. Other things I've played this week. I started playing yesterday a game called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate. And this is a Hades knockoff that has co-op.
Oh!
So you play as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Splinter's been kidnapped, and it's Hades. If you've ever played Hades, it is 100% just Hades. You have your boons, your special abilities that you get that are themed by different elements, and sometimes if you have complementary ones, you'll get like a duo that combines them, and you go through like 4 areas, collecting power-ups during the run, but also permanent upgrade materials you spend between runs, and then if you lose the run, you go back to the start and talk to all your NPCs in the hub, and then you go again. It is kind of just Hades.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
There's a couple of things that make this nice. There are 4 different playable characters that have different starting weapons, different special abilities. I think that adds some variety. But the biggest thing is the addition of co-op. Because from what I can tell, the game doesn't scale up its difficulty if you play in co-op. So if you're struggling with difficulty, you can play with someone else, and the game doesn't get harder as a result, but you have someone else who, let's say between runs you buy revives. You get that many revives, but also your other co-op player gets that many revives as well.
Oh, smart.
If one of you like runs out of revives and gets knocked out in a room, in a stage, but the other person can beat all the enemies and clear that room, you get revived with half your health. So as long as one of you survives the room, the other one can get back up and continue on to the next room. There's a lot of little things like that that do make this more approachable, I think, than a lot of other Hades-style roguelikes.
It seems like they understand that quality of life just sometimes needs to be added to games. It's not because you don't want to make it fun, it's just because not all of us have hours upon hours upon hours to grind a game.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to have.
I would also say, I think generally speaking, the difficulty curve is a little lower than something like Hades. There's not a lot in terms of accessibility settings to assist if you're still struggling. And there's a couple of little issues, like when you're playing in local co-op, if you move too far away from each other, like the camera zooms out as you move away from the other player, but eventually player 1 will get prioritized and player 2 might just get left off screen.
Oh.
Which isn't ideal. It didn't come up often. You can zoom pretty far out, but occasionally it comes up.
Yeah.
But yeah, me and my wife Jane spent like most of yesterday playing through that in co-op and having a great time. And it really does seem like, hey, if you like the idea of something like Hades, but you want something you can play in 2-player just so you have someone else helping carry you through a little bit, it's an approachable place to start that kind of genre. And the last thing I started playing, and I don't have a huge amount to say about this, but I started playing World of Goo 2. Have you ever played the first World of Goo?
No.
So, World of Goo is from a studio, I think they're called Tomorrow Corporation, and they've made games, I don't know if you've played any of these before. Little Inferno was one they did, which was a game about ordering things from a catalogue and burning them in a fireplace in order to keep yourself warm at the end of the world. And you're, like, trying to put things in the fireplace in combination so that they'll, like, make combos and, like, various things will happen. But ultimately you're a child trying to keep yourself warm at the end of the world by burning things. They make games that are, like, a little existential but weirdly cute.
Yes.
And World of Goo is a game where you're trying to build structures out of goo. You've got these little goo blobs, and you can like drag them to create new points that will get connected on a structure. And you're ultimately trying to build a structure that reaches a pipe using as few of these goo balls as possible, so as many as possible get sucked up the pipe.
Yeah.
World of Goo 2 is mechanically very similar. It has some new little things it throws in, like, oh, maybe there's balloons that'll help lift a structure up, or there's special kinds of goo balls or cannons or whatever, but generally speaking, the main thing that has felt different about World of Goo 2 so far is its plot, which, from what I've so far seen, is a very direct story about oil companies greenwashing themselves and trying to pretend that they're ecologically sound despite the destruction they're doing to the planet.
Yeah.
The Goo Corporation with its black sludge is very early on shown in an advert to be like, hey, don't think of us like all the black sludge. Here's us planting a tree. And then people watching this advert and going, wow, I feel like purchasing products and feeling no guilt about it now.
Yep.
It's not subtle in what it's trying to do, but I've always enjoyed this company's sense of very direct, stark storytelling. It is a game, I've been playing it on Switch, and on Switch you either need to use motion controls or touch controls in handheld mode to play it. There is no analog stick control method, which is honestly a bit disappointing, because I feel like you could use an analog stick to move a cursor around and it wouldn't cause any problems. It wouldn't be the most intuitive way to play it, but it would be an accessible option that just isn't available, which is a little disappointing. But if you're looking for a game on Switch that supports touch controls and is largely just about dragging things around a screen and watching silly narrative happen, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm looking forward to it. A lot of the challenge in it is like, oh, can you do it in fewer moves, or get more goo balls to the end, or do it in a faster time? But none of that's required. If you can, like, clear the very reasonably easy, like, minimum requirement, you can just move on to the next level and keep playing it. And yeah, I've been having fun with it so far.
Sounds fun. It sounds fun. Sounds like silly fun, and that is sometimes needed with games.
Yeah, exactly. So that's everything I've played this week. Shall we move on to the news?
Yes. on today's news, Sea of Thieves gives us new accessibility website. State of Decay 2 updates add 37 accessibility improvements. We got an accessibility hands-on impression of Star Wars Outlaws. The demo of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is discontinued. Budgie lays off 220 developers. And video games SAG-AFTRA voice actor strike. Yeah, shall we start at the top, as always, with Sea of Thieves' new accessibility website?
Yeah, so Sea of Thieves has been for a while trying to push forward accessibility. I'm always excited to hear when they do more on that. And
yeah, impressive.
Yeah. So the Topher Winrod, who we've talked about before from Rare, was the person who at GA Conf gave a talk about the audio aiming in Sea of Thieves. Has recently shared some sort of insights into how various Sea of Thieves accessibility things were done, and has put some of these things together on a new website that talks about, like, hey, here's the things we've done, here's the things we're aiming to do. One good thing about this website, it is Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.2 compliant.
Yes.
Hooray! Hooray for having your accessibility website be accessible correctly. Yes. You would be surprised how many websites don't have even basic web accessibility on accessibility-focused websites. On that note, don't use accessibility overlays. They don't work. They don't work. You are being sold a solution that is not a solution to these problems.
Yeah, sadly.
But alongside, like, listing all their accessibility information, they've gone into details about how they've made the website itself accessible, such as being able to reduce motion on the web page. So if you don't like parallax scrolling and things like that, there's just a button to turn that off. Videos and animations don't play automatically. All sorts of things to be like, hey, let's make sure the website itself about accessibility is accessible.
It is cool. I like that. It is showing again and again and again and again and again that Rare and Sea of Thieves are like really committed to their work for accessibility, and they understand that accessibility is not just one option or one design choice. Yeah. It is something that is pulled together in everything you do, and it's an ongoing process. Yes, I cannot really understand that people sometimes feel that accessibility is so overwhelming. They see something and they just go, nah, this is too much. But they also understand that one thing at a time. And they have done this for years now. It might be scary to see it or hear this news now and go like, whoa, this is too much, we couldn't do it. Sea of Thieves didn't start accessible at all. They have added things, one thing at a time for years now. Small things here and there, which is now gives us these fantastic things here. It is to show that everybody can do it, and you can do it in a slow pace, and that is okay. It is understandable and okay. Of course, we wish it would start from the start, but as you always say, if you didn't start at the start, the best time to start is today. And that is just what it is with accessibility as well.
Indeed. The website has a place where you can let them know if there are accessibility barriers that you're still experiencing, either with the game or with the website itself. So that's really cool. Next up, State of Decay 2. Speaking of games adding more accessibility over time, State of Decay 2 has added 37 new accessibility improvements in their latest update.
Let's go!
So yeah, State of Decay 2 is a game that has had some issues in the past with visibility. It is a game that, like, you play a lot of the game at night, and low visibility is deliberately a thing in that.
Yeah.
One of the things in this update is that you can now do something called nighttime light boost. Hey, you don't just want to brighten the whole screen, you specifically want to brighten the screen in a way that makes nighttime gameplay easier to visually see.
Yeah.
There's settings for that now. Other things that are in there, you've got the ability to customize curveball events, which are like random events that happen outside of your control.
Yeah.
You can customize individual sliders for, like, how frequently does a specific event show up? How is it balanced? How long does it last? To either make the game a lot more stressful or make things a lot less frequent. If a specific curveball event is an accessibility problem for you, you can go, I just want this one to never show up. Cool, that's fine. It is all about customizability, either making it harder or making it more accessible, both available.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of little things in this update, but I think that the big ones are the ability to brighten up gameplay at night and being able to customize those random events, both of which are like really good updates to see like years into a game's life.
And I also like the darkness update, because I think they have understood something also, that a lot of times people want accessibility. They don't necessarily want everything to be turned off. So like they're not asking for, can we get daytime at night? They're just asking, can we not have Game of Thrones, House of Dragon darkness on the screen where you'll go like, there is something happening, but I don't know what. And it's that understanding that you can meet people at the middle, and at least the pictures, I have not played it myself, but the pictures looks like it's a cool way of going like, hey, this is enough for me that I feel comfortable now playing the game, and to not strain my eyes too much. So GG to them.
As someone that always finds myself going into settings menus and turning the brightness up when it's nighttime in games, and then when it's daytime again, turning the brightness back down. Thank you for giving me an automated setting that will just do it when it's nighttime.
Yes, it's brilliant. The next one we have on our list is that Antonio has made this really, really, really good article over at Game Accessibility Nexus about Star Wars Outlaws. I don't think we're going to talk like that much about everything, because I think this is a well written review and worth to go and check out for you guys yourself. But it's nice to see that there it seems like, and this is just me thinking that Star Wars seems proud of their accessibility. They've already given us an accessibility spotlight, and now it seems like they are inviting people that they know will focus on accessibility to check out their game before it will be published. And I'm really, really glad to see this. Be open, be honest, be like out there about your accessibility. You will win so many people over. I have so many friends that do not buy games unless there is a review or something out there, because they're so fed up with getting a game, really, really excited, and then realizing they can't play it because it's missing a really crucial accessibility feature. Being like this, they make sure that people aren't getting angry with the brand Star Wars, and that they are like, because most people understand with an accessibility cannot be featured, but they will be cranky and rightfully angry if they buy something and then figure out they can't play it. So GG to Star Wars, and GG to Game Accessibility Nexus for making this really in-depth article talking about everything, the settings, the gameplay, the controls, the user interface, display, everything you can imagine. It seems like they talked about.
I will say it's really nice to see so many of these accessibility features in place in a demo, so that when a demo is shown to press, these things are there ready to be experienced prior to like the release build, which is really nice.
Yes.
Without going into huge depth, some of the highlights from this I would note. The game reportedly has an accessibility presets menu that, much like something like God of War Ragnarok, has degrees of preset, but also customizable presets. So you can go, what are all the things in? So the categories they've got are playability, cognitive, colors, vision, and hearing. And you can go, what is everything that you would turn on in the preset, like at max? Can I go in and customize the things from the preset list? So here's a list of things that might help you in that category. Customize them then and there to create your preset for that disability category. I'm like, that's very cool.
There's music in my ears. Oh,
right. There's a lot of really good stuff to do with customizable UI sizes, really nice subtitle options they've got, high contrast mode, audio descriptions. I'm reading this and going, this might end up replacing The Last of Us Part 2 in terms of being like the example we point to of game that has done the most best practice things in one thing that we can point to and go, this is the standard to try and hit. Like, obviously I haven't tried it yet, but it's it's sounding like it could be in that kind of conversation, and that is exciting to see.
And
everyone go read that article.
Yes, and when this article was written, it was a month before. So this game will be released the 30th of August. So this one came out July 30th. This is good. This gives people the opportunity to actually really understand accessibility before they buy it. So many times when I talk to developers, they are so into what their game is giving, and they're so good at that. But the information accessibility, like the next step of getting the accessibility from your studio and your game out to the masses, that is lost. And here, Star Wars is showing that that is possible. I just heads up, clapping. This is really, really good. GG, well done.
Indeed. Some not so great accessibility news from Ubisoft, though.
Yeah.
Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, a game that both of us have like really, really strong feelings about this game in terms of its accessibility meaning a lot to us. That game has in the past had a demo. I say in the past, it doesn't anymore. That game had a demo, and it was a really solid demo for like, you can play a good solid chunk of the game, you can check out the accessibility features in practice and see how they work for you. And at the end of July, they removed that demo. And that's really disappointing, because there is no better way for a person to check if a game's going to be accessible for them than to just let them play the start of the game and see if it's accessible for them.
That's the thing. And when I saw this was a huge disappointment. This was a blow.
Yeah.
There is also, like, I will always understand that there is a talk about the fact that having anything on a server costs money. I think now that I'm starting like doing more into the game world, the amount of money it just costs having something on a server to exist, to be able to download, it costs money. So I can, to some degree, understand that it is an easy choice for a company go, if we need to cut something, we cut it here. But I do not think that I understand that this is an easy fix that will be bad in the long run.
Yeah.
People need the opportunity to be able to test your game. I am fed up with thinking, and the worst part is if you go into a lot of games today on Steam, PlayStation, wherever you find them, you see a video and the video doesn't even show you the gameplay. So you can't actually, you just see maybe some pictures, and come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
There is no good replacement for having a demo someone can play to check if they can play your game.
Yes.
And it's always a shame when those become unavailable and there's not any other way to get them. Even if it's just like, look, here's a link that we put up that's like not got DRM on it, so you can just like, you can host it yourself if you want to keep the demo, or like a version of the demo you could have offline or something. It's a shame not being able to access that anymore.
It is really a shame, especially for us who have specialized equipment we play with, because it just, like, a lot of games today, especially games that are this big, takes hours of downloading and then money. Then you download it, and then it takes hours, and then you realize, I can't play it with my equipment. It will be too painful for me to play. This isn't accessible for me. In this case, though, this is a game you can get refund of, which is a good thing. I'm glad for that, at least. But in big names, like Nintendo games, some of them you aren't going to get the refund for. So, like, this is an actual problem, and I am, yes, you can hear, I am miffed and angry.
Understandably.
Yes.
Understandably, yeah.
Yeah, they're taking away... I sort of feel like we're trying to say for so many years now, come on, show your accessibility, do it, show it. And then they come here and go like, well, actually.
it wouldn't have bothered me so much if it wasn't for the fact this is such a good demo for such an interestingly accessible game.
Yeah, and also because they have sold so much on accessibility. They have like sort of prided themselves of being an accessible game, which it still is. It's a really accessible game. But then priding yourself that much about that when you do the pre like hype of the game, and the when you release the game, the hype around the game is about it being accessible, and then some months in, you're just got quietly, well, not that quietly, they did tweet it out, but you are going to just discontinue something that is also an accessibility tool. is disappointing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you want to tackle the next story on the list?
More thing to be even more angry about.
Yeah.
This is for this. It sounds like we are a broken clock at this point. We're just saying the same things over and over. This time is Bungie.
Same things keep happening.
Yeah. 220 developers in Bungie has been laid off. It's estimated to be around 17 to 21% of Bungie's employees are being laid off. And at this point, what to say though? I mean, it is disappointing.
The big thing that I feel about it is the circumstances that make this particularly annoying is it feels like Hi-Fi Rush did previously, where it's like Bungie has just released I forget what the name of their most recent expansion was, but it was basically like the conclusion to the story that's been running since the beginning of Destiny 1. It's their big story, and they finally finished it with this big expansion. And from all accounts from people I've spoken to who are like big Bungie people, critically incredibly well received. Like the player base absolutely loved it. It is like the best enjoyed piece of content that Bungie has put out in years. Like they are just on the tail end of we've put out the best thing we've ever put out, and then suddenly big layoffs.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of Hi-Fi Rush, where we saw like this critically well-received, game that came out of nowhere that everyone seemed to love and assume would get a sequel, and then suddenly the studio's gone. And it just goes to remind that no amount of like success or, making something that is well-loved and well-received by an audience is enough that capitalism won't just go, nope, we're gonna scratch a bunch of you off so that we can have a slightly higher number at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
it sucks. It's nothing else to say. We are still seeing the consequences of the massive like COVID surge when everybody quote unquote started making games, and it got like a really, really big jump. And now 4 years later, we're still seeing that. The sad thing is though, as often, it is the people in the bottom line who get cut.
Yeah.
And it is a way of the game industry needs to be done in a different way. Here I am going to lightly tread, because even though I am part of game industry, I don't work and have never worked for a big company. And these changes, we need to listen to the people who are affected. Like, is there a way of, like, could there a work agreement be done better? Like, we have to listen to them. Is that a thing that could be it? Is it just that, what is it that can make people...
Yeah. I think it's no surprise that in the last couple of years, while all of these layoffs have been happening, we have seen a huge surge in unions forming in the video game industry.
Yes.
And a big part of that has been in response to poor treatment of workers from higher-ups at companies, and layoffs happening with zero warning to people who did nothing wrong in their jobs.
Yep.
And specifically, like, I think the big issue that the video game industry is going to need to eventually deal with is the myth of perpetual growth. So many of these big companies are operated by, largely funded by shareholders who ultimately, at the end of the day, being a profitable company that stays at the same level of profitability is not enough for shareholders, because shareholders have paid an amount of money for their shares, and they want their shares to be worth more next year, which means your profit can't just be good, it has to be better than last year.
Yeah.
And there is not enough money in the world for a company to make more money than last year every year forever.
No.
And this is where so many of these layoffs come from, is a company looks at their line and goes, it's not higher than last year, the shareholders will be upset. If we fire X number of people, that's a quick way to spend less money and have the number go up slightly and to make it look like we grew.
Yep.
And that is not sustainable.
No, and I really, really hope that the game industry, and we are seeing more and more people, more and more companies starting to unionizing. There we go. That's a hard word for my mouth. But anyways, starting this union is like, there is power behind them. And I absolutely wish the best to everybody who's starting one. And I also think it's a really, really good way of forcing a lot of the things that is happening in the game industry into the light. Because the game industry is one of the world's most biggest industry, especially when it comes to money, how much money is going around. And the problem with it is that since gaming still to this day isn't sort of like it isn't what we call, in Norway we call it stueren, which just means that it's like it's clean enough to be in your living room. It's sort of like something you can talk with all generations. It could be on daytime TV. And gaming is still not there. Like, there is so many people having so many weird feelings and thoughts about gaming that is not true. Like, the 90s gamer boy is still, like, hanging in people's mind when I think about gamers. And it's still seen as something like, oh, it's something silly nerds do in the free time. Not understanding that this is really, really big industry. And the reason why I think some people don't fight more against that image is because when you have that image, you can do a lot of things in the shades. You can be like, not being shady and being mean, but you can just like get away with a lot of things because you will not get attention. But with unions, with getting it more like that, you will force things like this up in the light. And then maybe people sitting on the top want to things that they shouldn't do.
Speaking of unions, we've got one last story this week that is also about unions. SAG-AFTRA's video game voice actor portion of their union is currently on strike. And I think it's important we talk about what that strike is and what it means, and specifically how it interacts with what we do as well, I think is worth talking about. So the short version is that back in September of 2023, SAG-AFTRA's video game voice actors authorized a strike, basically saying, hey, we've put it to a vote with our union members, and I think it was like 93 or 98% of the union said, yes, we're happy to strike, meaning that if, you know, the organizers decided to strike, it could just go ahead because they had the votes already. And for about a year now, they've been negotiating with the big video game companies, specifically around AI and voice work. A big part of this is when SAG-AFTRA's TV and film strikes were happening last year. Video game voice actors felt like they were really left out in the lurch and not supported by the deal that was reached by the union. A lot of protections were won for people in film and TV that weren't extended to people in the video game industry. And a lot of video game voice actors are right now concerned about having their voice cloned without their consent, having voice replication done to avoid paying them to do voice lines, just getting a computer to make new lines in their voice style. Things like being concerned that these companies will pressure people to say yes to being involved in AI because it's like wrapped up into their contract, where it's like, well, you know, we're looking for someone who's happy to have their voice trained for AI, so if you're not happy to sign that contract, we'll get someone else who is happy with voice AI to sign the contract, and using that as a way to like force people into voice AI that they're not comfortable with. And this is like some very real concerns that are going on that are currently being struck over. In terms of how that applies to what we do, SAG-AFTRA have said in terms of streamers and podcasters in their FAQ, they're not asking streamers not to play or stream games from struck companies, and they're not asking podcasters not to talk about games from struck companies, but they are saying, hey, if you talk about stuff that you can identify as struck work, talk about the strikes, talk about the fact they're happening, make people aware of the strikes. You know, we're not asking for a boycott, but we are asking that you use your platform to amplify the fact these strikes are happening, which I think is a very reasonable ask to have. I think it's also worth noting there's been some confusion because the video game companies are really trying to muddy the waters about what is struck work. You might have seen some stories floating around, like Take-Two says that Grand Theft Auto 6 is not a struck work. EA says that Dragon Age Veilguard is not a struck work, despite the fact that Veilguard's voice actors have all publicly on social media gone, we are taking part in the strike, we are not doing anything to do with Veilguard until the strike ends. That confusion comes from the fact that technically, by the letter of the rules, there is a rule that says that technically games in development prior to August 2023 are not technically struck works. But SAG-AFTRA have made it clear that if you would like to stand in solidarity with the strikes, they would like you to treat those works as if they are struck, despite maybe technically not being able to tell you they're a struck work. The way to stand in solidarity is to treat them as struck work. And these companies are deliberately trying to muddy that water, but the union are saying, treat these as struck work, please do not work on these projects right now, even if they are technically fine to work on. Like, if we can't punish you for working on them, but please listen to us and don't work on them regardless. So, hey, if you're suddenly offered your first ever voice acting role next week, despite having never voice acted for a big AAA game, it's probably because they want you to help undermine the strike. Support them. Don't do struck work right now.
And I highly recommend people that want to learn more to go into SAG-AFTRA's webpage. I just checked it while we were talking now, just to see. It is really easy to find information. They have their own article or site about video games, where you can find everything, both if you work in the industry, also if you're a fan, streamer, content creator. They have a really, really, really good list of like facts, ask question and answers. You will get everything there, and of course also check out their social media updates and stuff like that comes out there. And yeah, inform yourself, get some knowledge about it, and let's take care of what we love, because in the end of this all, if no matter how much we love a game, if the people who are working on it aren't treated well, or we're taking care of the future of these wonderful, amazing people, there will not be games. So we need to take care of our community, and it includes this. So please do go and inform yourself about this strike and learn a bit more.
Exactly. And I think that's all of the news for this week.
Yes. Last week we did ask a question: what an accessibility accommodation that you appreciate being offered in an in-person event? Laura, have you thought about this?
Oh, I've been thinking about this a lot, and this is something like we talked about a little bit in previous weeks, but I wanted to like really give it some focus. I would love if more physical video game convention type events offered the ability for disabled people to access virtual queuing systems. Systems by which you can get, maybe your queue has an estimated wait time, and it's like, oh, if the queue is at this length, it's probably going to be about 90 minutes before you can access the game demo or whatever it is. And be able to get something that like puts down what time you came to the queue and what the estimated wait time was, and you can just queue somewhere else that is quieter and less busy, and come back when your period of waiting in the queue would have ended, and enjoy the thing. Yep. It is not a way to skip past that amount of waiting, but as a way to just not have to be in a confined space where you are stuck, surrounded by people, not really able to leave, not able to look after whatever needs you might have as a disabled person, but can do that waiting somewhere more accessible and come back when your wait would have been over. Yep. Be that as like a event-wide system, or if you're an individual exhibitor at something like Gamescom, you could offer that and do like as a thing that even if it's just like a little paper system, there are ways you can do it that would I really benefit from those systems when they're available. What about you?
I think I have a threefold answer to this. I will be a bit quick. I think one of the first things is understand that not everybody can go and see your event. So either make it like hybrid, or go together with companies. A lot of companies want to have goodwill, and then you can say, hey, do you want to have the goodwill of the fact that you have sponsored disabled creators or people to come to our event? So have some sort of way people can do a little application to get like a stipend to go to your event. I think that is really, really lovely, because that makes we have the disability tax. The disability tax is just saying that it is more expensive being disabled than being non-disabled, because we need to take a lot more precautions, more expensive trains, stuff like that. It's just more expensive for us. So I think that is lovely. I also think what like GFConf does with having like a quiet room where you can like go away, even though if you need it as like an accessibility or just like in generally, when you are at a conference or a place for a long time, your head get like, ugh. And just like being able to go away somewhere where the temperature is okay, it isn't that many people, it's quiet, and you can just rest a bit. So important. And I was thinking about the last one. Yes, that was that. Send people. Don't be afraid to have people do papers or articles about your event. I did, and the accessibility about your event. When I did the TwitchCon tweet, which is not even a thing, it has actually a lot of people who have messaged me later on, getting information, asking me questions, getting help for TwitchCon coming up now in US. All of these information because they have seen somebody else being there, and that feels more safe than just the random corporation themselves saying this. So when you send out like your passes for people that do press, why not take on somebody like myself or somebody else that does accessibility review of your event? So that you learn. It's an extremely good thing. You literally have somebody doing free like checking for you. Perfect. And 2, you give a more human way of looking at something for your attendees. So just important. I really, really want to see more people do that. Like, I hope that we will see, what we'll see is somebody that Gamescom get in somebody now that are paid to go around and check accessibility and write about it. I really, really hope so, but we will see. But talking about Gamescom, next week's question, because it is really close to Gamescom. If you don't know what Gamescom is the world's biggest game convention. More industry based than others, isn't it? Or is it more?
So I would say it's more of a mix than both events. So you've got things like E3 that are like, at least used to be like exclusively for press, and you have things like PAX that are like very much for the public. Gamescom has like an entire separate wing of the building that is like for press events and media events. But the public-facing bit is huge. There's like 350,000 people that turn up to the public-facing sort of demo halls. It is very much a mix of both.
Yeah. And we have our question that is, what are you hoping to see at Gamescom, either from opening night live or in person at the show?
Indeed. By the time we next record this, I will have just come back from Gamescom, so I will be able to tell you about all sorts of things I saw, but I haven't seen them yet. So if you have predictions of things that you hope will be, you know, revealed during Jeff Keighley's little news thing beforehand, or if you're going, things that you hope you'll be able to play while you're there, you can let us know by commenting on the YouTube video for this episode, or emailing control-alt-access-podcast@gmail.com, or commenting on the SoundCloud, or tweeting either of us just on social media at Laura K. Buzz or Arevya. Let us know wherever you wish to, and you might be included in next episode.
Yes.
I think that's everything.
I think that's everything.
Where can people find you on the internet?
We can find me under the name Arevya everywhere except for TikTok, because somebody stole my name, where I am Arevya Gaming.
Wonderful.
And you, Laura?
I can be found at Laura K. Buzz pretty much everywhere. Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Patreon, that's the one that pays the bills, Blue Sky, Mastodon, all the places you can find me at Laura K. Buzz. I think that's everything for this week. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching and listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye!